All right, let's get into it. Imagine this. You're standing in the middle of a crowd, maybe a gathering in the town square, or a field on the outskirts of some small town, or a bustling city street. It's a time of unrest, tension thick in the air, a moment where people are on the edge, ready for change, but uncertain, apprehensive, almost afraid. And then through that weighty silence, someone starts singing. Just a lone voice at first, a melody that cuts through the air, maybe raw and rough, maybe soft and trembling. But as that voice rises, others join in, and suddenly it's not one voice, it's hundreds, then thousands singing in unison. Something happens in that moment, something powerful, almost beyond words. It's unity, it's dunity, it's defiance, it's hope. That's the power of music in moments of revolution. It speaks the words that maybe we're too afraid to say out loud. It taps into emotions that we can't fully express, and it has this almost magical ability to cut through our differences and fears, to bring people together in a shared feeling, a shared purpose. Now think about how this has played out in our own history here in the United States. Go all the way back to the American Revolution. The patriots weren't just fighting on the battlefields. They were fighting in the hearts and minds of every person who dared to dream of a life free from British rule. And one of the ways they stirred that spirit was through music. Songs like Yankee Doodle, at first, it was a song meant to mock American colonists, but the patriots took it, they owned it, they turned it into a rallying cry. Imagine that taking something meant to belittle and twisting it, flipping it into a source of pride. There's something fiercely American about that, about taking something negative and using it to our advantage to build our own sense of identity and unity. Music wasn't just a backdrop to the revolution. It was a weapon, a tool, something that reached people in ways that speeches and pamphlets simply couldn't. It got under the skin, stayed in people's heads, and reminded them of what they were fighting for every time they heard it. And let's fast forward a little bit to the civil rights movement. This was a movement that shook the very foundations of our country, and music was right there at the heart of it. Think about "We Shall Overcome." That song wasn't just a tune, it was an anthem. It's impossible to overstate how much that song meant to people who were putting their lives on the line for freedom and equality. The beauty of it was in its simplicity. It wasn't a song that needed to be belted out by a trained voice. It was something that anyone could sing. And they did in churches, in protest lines, at sit-ins. Every time it was sung, it was a reminder, a reaffirmation that the struggle was shared, that they were not alone. We shall overcome, not I shall overcome. It was about community, about solidarity, about the strength that comes from standing together. Music in the civil rights movement was more than just background noise. It was an emotional lifeline, something that brought people together, that gave them strength when they needed it most. Then there's the Vietnam War era, a time when our country was as divided as it had ever been. Young men and women were being shipped off to fight in a war halfway around the world, and back home, the protest movement was building steam. And once again, music was there helping people make sense of what was happening, giving voice to the anger, the disillusionment, the frustration that so many felt. Songs like Fortunate Son by Creedence Clearwater Revival, Blowin' in the Wind by Bob Dylan. These weren't just songs. They were statements. They captured the heartache and the rage of a generation. People weren't just singing along. They were identifying with the lyrics, using these songs as a way to protest, to express their discontent with a war they didn't believe in. It was as if through music they found a way to shout their dissent, to stand up against something they felt was wrong. These songs didn't just reflect a mood. They shaped it, they amplified it, they sent it echoing across the country. And it's not just about the lyrics. The way a song sounds, the beat, the rhythm, the tempo, all of these things can stir something in us, something primal. Fast beat can make us feel energized, ready to march, ready to take action. A slower, mournful tune can make us reflect, feel the weight of something more profound. That's why music has this unique ability to bring people together in times of social upheaval. It bypasses the rational, logical part of our brain and speaks directly to our emotions. It makes us feel things deeply, intensely, and in a way that can be almost overwhelming. Music doesn't argue. It doesn't persuade in the traditional sense. It just is. It exists, it resonates, and if we let it, it can carry us to places we might not otherwise go. So in every major social movement, every fight for change, music has been there. It's been the heartbeat, the rhythm, the soul of the movement. It's something that's universal, something that everyone can connect to. You don't have to speak the same language. You don't have to come from the same background. Music cuts through all of that. And when you stand shoulder to shoulder with strangers singing the same song, you realize something. You're not alone. You're part of something bigger. That's the power of music in social revolutions. It doesn't just document history. It helps make it. It fuels it. It fuels it. It feeds it. And in many ways, it is the revolution. All right, let's dive into a different layer of this story, a layer where music goes beyond being a soundtrack and becomes a form of rebellion, a way for people to shout, to whisper, to cry out when they feel like they're not being heard. Music, especially certain genres like rock, rap, and hip-hop, became more than just entertainment. It turned into a raw expression of defiance, a powerful statement from a generation or a group of people who felt misunderstood, marginalized, or outright oppressed. You look back and you can see how it evolved from something passive, something you just listen to, into something active, something that pushes back. When young people or any group that felt ignored couldn't find a voice in politics or society, they found it in music. It became the unfiltered, uncensored truth, a form of storytelling that didn't need permission, that didn't play by anyone else's rules. Think about rock and roll in the 1960s and 70s. Back then, rock was like the wild child of music, breaking all the norms, rattling all the cages. It was loud, rebellious, raw, and it connected with young people who were questioning the world around them. They were questioning authority, the values of their parents' generation, the structures that tried to tell them who to be, how to act, and what to think. Rock music didn't just give them a way to rebel. It gave them a way to feel understood. The Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, they weren't just musicians. They were icons of freedom, of living life without a leash. And when people listened to them, when they blasted those records, it was like they were giving a big middle finger to everything that tried to keep them in a box. It was movement, revolution in sound, and it spread like wildfire because it touched on something deeply human, that desire to break free, to express yourself fully without holding back. And then you have hip-hop, which is in many ways one of the most powerful forms of protest music to ever exist. Born out of the streets of the Bronx in the 1970s, hip-hop came from a place of struggle, from communities that felt abandoned, from voices that society had tried to silence. The beat, the rhythm, the rhymes, it was all raw, direct, and unapologetically real. Hip-hop became a way for people to tell their own stories, stories of survival, of hardship, of resilience. It was a form of poetry that came straight from the gut, from the experiences of people who were often overlooked or misrepresented. And as hip-hop grew, as it evolved, it didn't just stay in New York. It spread across the country, then across the world, because the struggle, the anger, the desire for change that it expressed, that wasn't unique to one neighborhood or one city. It was universal. You hear it in songs by artists like Tupac, who poured his heart and soul into lyrics that talked about poverty, racism, injustice, and resilience. He didn't sugarcoat anything, didn't hold back. He showed the world the raw, unfiltered reality of what it meant to grow up in a society that felt stacked against you. And it's not just the stories or the lyrics. The sound itself in these genres is like a call to action. The heavy bass in hip-hop, the electric guitars in rock, the electric guitars in rock. They don't just create music. They create energy. It's almost like a battle cry. It gets inside you, makes you feel something powerful. That's why these genres have such a unique place in movements for change. When you feel that bass thumping in your chest or that guitar riff hitting your ears, it connects to something primal, something that doesn't need words. It tells you, we're here, we're alive, we won't be ignored. There's something incredibly empowering about that. It turns a song into more than a song. It becomes an experience, a feeling that pulls people together, that makes them feel stronger because they know they're not alone in how they feel. There's a reason why authoritarian regimes, oppressive governments, they're always afraid of music. They censor it. They ban it. They arrest the musicians. They know that a song can do what a speech or a book sometimes can't. It can slip through the cracks. It can reach people in a way that's almost impossible to control. Music can unite people who have never met, can make strangers feel like they're fighting the same fight. It can give strength to those who feel weak, hope to those who feel lost. And it's not just theoretical. Look at how music played a role in bringing awareness to issues like police brutality and systemic racism in America. Songs like NWA, that police were born out of real experiences, out of frustration and anger at a system that felt unjust, a system that was hurting real people. It wasn't just a song. It was a statement, a declaration that said, this is happening, this is real, and we're not going to stay silent about it. And sure, it was controversial. People tried to shut it down, to dismiss it as just noise, as just anger. Mm-hmm. But that's the thing about music. Once it's out there, it has a life of its own. You can't cage it. You can't silence it because it already resonates with the people. Music, at its core, has this ability to communicate emotions, to connect people across boundaries of language, race, background. It's like this universal language that we all understand on some level, even if we don't always fully understand the words. It's a form of expression that's as old as humanity itself. And in times of struggle, in times when people feel trapped, feel voiceless, music becomes a lifeline. It reminds us of our humanity. It reminds us of our shared experience. And it can give us the courage to stand up, to push back, to say, this is who I am, this is what I believe, and I'm not backing down. So when we talk about music and social movements, we're talking about more than just songs. We're talking about a force, a voice that has the power to transcend barriers, to stir something in people that makes them feel alive, makes them feel seen. And in a world where it can feel like we're all isolated, all just fighting our own battles, that connection, that shared feeling, that's priceless. It's not something you can manufacture or control. It's real, it's raw, and it's powerful. That's why music has always been and will always be a vital part of any movement, of any revolution. It's not just about rebellion. It's about survival, about identity, about finding strength in a world that often feels overwhelming. And as long as there are people who feel misunderstood, who feel like they need to be heard, music will be there, cutting through the noise, breaking down walls, and reminding us that we're all in this together. All right? Now let's dig even deeper into the idea of unity, of connection. The way music has this almost mystical ability to bring people together, to form these unbreakable bonds between people who might never even know each other's names. When we're talking about social change, about challenging the status quo, there's always this undeniable need for solidarity, for collective strength. And it's in this space that music does something truly magical. It doesn't just echo people's feelings. It becomes the very fabric that weaves individuals into a community, into something larger than themselves. Music turns strangers into allies. It turns crowds into movements. And it gives us this shared rhythm to march to. It's like in those moments of shared song, all the differences, all the barriers, they just dissolve. What's left is a sense of shared purpose, a feeling that says, we're in this together. Think about it. When we hear a song that resonates with us on a deep level, it's almost like it lights a spark, a feeling of belonging, of understanding. And when we experience that alongside other people, that spark becomes a flame. You're at a concert or in a march or even in a living room with a group of friends, and everyone's singing along to the same song. That's not just a shared activity. It's a moment of communion. It's this feeling of unity that transcends language, race, background, or beliefs. You're standing next to people you may never have spoken to otherwise, people who might lead completely different lives. And yet, in that moment, you're singing the same words, feeling the same rhythm, living the same experience. It's an incredibly powerful thing. It's almost spiritual in a way. This connection, this sense of unity, is why music has played such a huge role in some of the most intense and transformative moments in our history. Look at Woodstock, the iconic festival of 1969. It was more than just a concert. It was a cultural moment, a gathering of people who believed in peace, who were questioning authority, were challenging the norms of society. Over 500,000 people came together, braving the rain, the mud, the lack of food and shelter, just to be there, to be part of something. And yes, it was chaotic. It was unorganized, but it didn't matter because what they shared was bigger than any of the inconveniences. For 3 days, that field was a place of unity, of togetherness, of shared ideals. Every song that played on that stage wasn't just music. It was a declaration of values, of beliefs, a promise of hope for a different kind of world. The music carried those ideals, amplified them, and in that collective experience, it cemented those values into the hearts and minds of everyone there. The same thing happened during the civil rights movement, during the anti-war protests, and it's happening again today. We've seen it recently with movements like Black Lives Matter, where music once again served as this unifying force. Protesters sang songs of resilience, songs of hope, songs that reflected the pain and the anger, but also the unshakable resolve for change. It's like these songs become a shield, a banner, something to rally around. And even when things get hard, even when there's fear, even when there's resistance, that music reminds everyone of why they're there, of the purpose that binds them together. That's the power of a protest song. It doesn't just express the emotions of a single person. It channels the collective experience of everyone who believes in that cause. But here's the really beautiful thing. Music not only brings people together in times of struggle, it also helps them imagine a future. It offers a vision of what could be, what we're fighting for. Songs like John Lennon's Imagine didn't just resonate because they were beautiful. They resonated because they painted a picture of a world without borders, without divisions, without war. They allowed people to step outside of the harsh reality and see a vision of what we might create if we just hold on to that hope. If we keep believing, keep pushing. Music, in that sense, isn't just about rebellion or protest. It's about possibility, about creating a space where we can dream of a better world. This is why music has such an enduring, almost timeless place in the world of social movements. It's not only a reflection of our feelings in the here and now. It's a promise of what might be possible in the future. And when you're fighting for change, when you're pushing back against the weight of the world, sometimes that vision of the future is what keeps you going. It's the light at the end of the tunnel, the thing that tells you this is worth it. This struggle, this sacrifice, it all matters. Music gives us that gift, that reminder that even in our darkest times, there's something worth fighting for, something bigger than ourselves. And there's something else, too. Music has this way of living on, of becoming part of the very fabric of history. These songs that were born out of struggle, out of movements, they don't just disappear once the protests are over or the battles are won. They become part of our cultural memory. They remind future generations of what was fought for, of the values that shaped us. Every time someone listens to those songs, they're connecting with that history, with those people, those voices, It's like these songs are time capsules, carrying forward the emotions, the courage, the hope of the people who lived through those moments. And that's important because it keeps the spirit of those movements alive. It keeps reminding us that change is possible, that unity is powerful, that when people come together with a shared purpose, they can create something unstoppable. So when you think about it, music isn't just a tool for revolution. It's part of the revolution itself. It's woven into the very DNA of social change. It moves with us, grows with us, and stays with us long after the chants have faded, long after the marches have ended. And that's something that transcends generations. Today, kids are listening to the same songs their parents and grandparents marched to, maybe without even fully realizing the weight of those lyrics. But somehow they feel it. They sense that power, that history, that legacy. And maybe that's the most beautiful part of all, that music, in its own quiet way, passes down the torch. It keeps the flame alive, ready for the next generation, the next fight, the next dream of a better world. All right? Let's bring this full circle and talk about what all of this means for the future, for where music is headed and how its role in social change might continue to evolve in ways we can't even fully predict yet. We're living in an era of technology and connectivity like never before. Music isn't confined to vinyl records or CDs anymore. It's not something we have to wait to hear on the radio or see at a concert. Now, it's everywhere, all the time, accessible at the touch of a button, streaming right into our lives. And with that shift, with music so integrated into our everyday routines, its potential to create impact has only grown. We're seeing music's role in social movements becoming even more immediate, even more global, because it has the power to reach anyone, anywhere, in an instant. It can spread like wildfire, crossing borders and cultures, moving people from the inside out. We're looking at a time when a song written on one side of the world can inspire protests on the other, when a message can resonate universally, beyond any one language, any one country. It's a reminder that music might just be the most powerful unifier we have. And think about this, with social media, artists aren't just releasing songs. They're opening up dialogues, connecting directly with people in ways that weren't possible before. Musicians' voice now isn't just in the music, but in their own words, their own actions, on platforms where people can respond, can share, can mobilize. When Beyonce sings about empowerment or Kendrick Lamar addresses inequality, they're not just making a statement in the music. They're sparking conversations, creating space for people to discuss, to reflect, to challenge. Social media has turned music from a one-way conversation into a massive interactive experience. And that's a game changer. Because now it's not just about listening. It's about engaging, participating, even co-creating the movement. Music becomes a catalyst, and it moves fast, drawing people together from every corner of the globe in real time. What's also fascinating is how music can now embody so many voices and perspectives. With today's technology, you don't need a big record label or a huge budget to get your message out there. Independent artists are emerging from everywhere, bringing their unique experiences and views into the mainstream, giving representation to communities that have long been ignored or sidelined. This is important because social movements are built on voices, on stories, and the more voices we have, the richer, the more complete the picture becomes. Hip-hop artists from small towns, singers from indigenous communities, rappers from inner cities, they're all bringing something invaluable to the table, something raw and real that resonates with people on a deep emotional level. This democratization of music means that social movements can now carry the voices of all people, not just the ones at the top, not just the ones with resources, but the voices of those who live through the struggles, who understand them intimately. And then there's this concept of virtual concerts, of online spaces where people can gather, where artists can perform live to a global audience. Imagine thousands, even millions of people all tuning in from their homes, but experiencing the same music, the same message in real time. It's like these virtual gatherings are creating a new form of protest, a new form of solidarity that we're only beginning to understand. When the world went into lockdown, we saw musicians adapt, creating live streams, virtual concerts, and people showed up by the millions. Why? Because even in isolation, people craved that sense of unity, that feeling of connection, and music was there to bridge that gap. And if anything, these virtual events proved that music doesn't need a physical space to create impact. It doesn't need to be contained by walls or borders. It can reach anyone, anywhere, bringing people together in ways that feel almost like a miracle. And here's something else to think about. As our society becomes more and more complex, as issues become more layered and interconnected, music has this incredible way of cutting through all that complexity, of distilling it down to its emotional core. Songs can take these big, often overwhelming topics, climate change, racial justice, economic inequality, and make them personal, make them something you feel in your heart, not just understand with your head. Music has this rare ability to reach into the chaos and pull out something real, something true, something that people can hold on to. It's this emotional clarity that drives people to act, to make changes in their lives, in their communities. And when you think about it, that's what any movement is ultimately about, finding a truth that resonates deeply enough to inspire change, to light that fire in people's hearts. So where does this all lead? It leads to a future where music isn't just a soundtrack to change. It is the change. It's part of the lifeblood of every social movement, woven into the fabric of every protest, every act of defiance and hope. We're looking at a time when music is going to continue breaking down barriers, crossing borders, amplifying voices that need to be heard. And as long as there are people out there who feel unseen, unheard, as long as there are people fighting for a better world, music will be there, carrying those voices forward, giving them strength, giving them hope. It's a powerful thing to think about, that something as simple as a song can shape history, can define eras, can bring people together across distances and differences. But that's exactly what music does. It holds the potential for revolution, for connection, for unity in a way that nothing else can. And as we move forward, as we continue to push for change, to dream of a more just and equal world, music will be there leading the way, as it always has. Because in the end, music isn't just something we listen to. It's something we live by. It's the beat that drives us, the melody that lifts us, the voice that carries us when words alone aren't enough. It's the sound of humanity at its best, and it's the rhythm of every revolution yet to come. All right? Let's take this journey to the heart of it all. The idea that music in its purest form is a language of the soul, something that transcends any barriers we humans might put up. When we talk about music and revolutions and movements, we're not just talking about politics or social justice. We're talking about the essence of human connection, the ability of sound to resonate within us in a way that words alone can't. Think about it. Music, since the dawn of time, has been this almost sacred way of expressing things that can't be captured in any other form. You can look back to ancient civilizations and see that they used music not just for celebration, but for mourning, for storytelling, for prayer. Music has always been intertwined with the most powerful parts of the human experience. It's like this ancient force that carries with it the weight of every person who's ever sung a song, played an instrument, danced in rhythm, and felt something profound from it. Now take that and apply it to moments of deep struggle, times when people feel oppressed, unheard, even lost. Music steps in as this force that helps people feel seen, feel validated. And it's amazing, really, how universal this is. You could be in a small village on the other side of the world listening to a song sung in a language you don't understand. And yet you feel it. You feel the sadness, the joy, the longing, or the anger, because music communicates those emotions without the need for translation. It reminds us that no matter how different we think we are, at the core, we're all human. We all have this deep well of feeling, of experience that connects us. And when you put that kind of power into the hands of people fighting for change, it becomes a kind of weapon, a tool that cuts through all the noise, all the propaganda, all the politics, and gets to the truth of what people are experiencing. Music has this ability to amplify voices in a way that forces the world to listen. And this is important because sometimes traditional forms of protest aren't enough. Sometimes the world needs something more visceral, something that can touch people emotionally, bypass all the defenses we put up. That's where music comes in. It sneaks in under the radar. It bypasses our biases, and it forces us to feel. You think about a song like Strange Fruit by Billie Holiday. That song wasn't just a piece of music. It was a bold, painful reminder of the brutality of racism in America. It painted a picture so vivid, so heartbreaking, that people couldn't ignore it. It struck a nerve, made people uncomfortable, made them think. And that discomfort, that raw emotional reaction, is what makes music such a powerful tool for change. It doesn't let us stay in our comfort zones. It pulls us out, forces us to confront things that we might otherwise turn away from. And then there's the fact that music lives on. It doesn't disappear when the movement dies down, when the protest ends, when the crowd goes home. Songs, especially the powerful ones, live on, carrying the memory of those moments forward. They become symbols, they become reminders, and in a way, they become warnings, reminders of what was fought for, and warnings of what happens if we forget. You listen to a song from the civil rights era today, and it still resonates. The issues might have changed, but the fight, the emotion, the hope, it's all still there, echoing across the decades, reminding us that the struggle for justice, for equality, is an ongoing one. That's why these songs are so much more than music. They're historical artifacts, they're emotional time capsules, and they have this incredible power to bridge the gap between generations. It's amazing, too, how music gives people the courage to stand up, to speak out, even when the odds seem impossible. There's something about hearing a song that reflects your experience, your struggle, that makes you feel less alone, makes you feel part of something bigger. When people come together in song, it's like they're saying to the world, we're here and we're not backing down. It's like a rallying cry, a declaration of existence and resistance. And in that moment, they're not just individuals. They're a movement. They're a force. Music unites people in a way that gives them strength, that reinforces their commitment to the cause, whatever that cause might be. It's like fuel for the spirit, something that keeps the fire alive, even in the darkest times. And here's the beautiful thing. This isn't going away. As long as there are people who want change, who want a better world, music will be there, guiding them, inspiring them, giving them a voice. It's a tradition that's as old as humanity itself, and it's one that's only going to grow as we become more connected, as technology gives us even more ways to share our voices, our stories. Music isn't static. It evolves, it adapts, it becomes whatever it needs to be to serve the people who need it. And as long as we keep listening, keep creating, keep feeling, it will keep pushing us forward. It will keep reminding us of who we are, of what we're capable of, and of the power we hold when we come together. So when you hear a song that moves you, remember that you're part of something much bigger. You're connected to a long line of people who have used music as their voice, as their strength, as their protest. You're part of a legacy that spans generations, that crosses borders, that defies boundaries. And that's the magic of music. It's more than sound, more than melody or rhythm. It's the heartbeat of change, the pulse of humanity, the spirit of revolution, and it's here in each of us, ready to be unleashed whenever we need it. All right? Here's where we reach the soul of it all. The realization that music, at its core, is one of the most powerful forces humanity has ever known. It's not just a backdrop to life. It's a driving force, a lifeline, a way of capturing everything that makes us human and amplifying it. Music has this strange, almost mystical power. It's like it has its own heartbeat, its own pulse, and it reaches into us, pulls out our deepest emotions and reflects them back in a way that feels true, unfiltered, raw. When words fail, when speeches or protests or movements seem too daunting, music finds a way to cut through all that. It finds the core of what people feel, what they believe, and it holds it up to the world, saying, this is who we are. This is what we're fighting for. And here's the thing. Every single time we've faced a moment of great change, music has been there, leading the way. Think about it. When society hits these turning points, when everything feels like it's on the line, there's always music there to carry us through. There's something ancient, almost sacred about it. Music is one of those things that's been with us since the beginning, from the first humans who sang to the skies, to the rhythm of drums in tribal ceremonies, to the symphonies of the great composers, to the rock anthems and hip-hop beats that define modern revolutions. Music taps into a part of us that nothing else can reach. It's like a universal language, a form of communication that goes beyond words, beyond borders, beyond everything that tries to separate us in the toughest of times, in moments when everything feels hopeless. Music has this way of rekindling that spark, of reminding us that we're still here, that we're still fighting. It's more than just sound. It's survival. It's resilience. Think about the way people sing in times of struggle. It's not just about making noise. It's a way of saying, we will not be silenced. We will not disappear. It's a way of holding on to hope, of building community, of reminding each other that we're in this together, that there's something worth fighting for, even when everything feels like it's falling apart. And that's what makes music so powerful in social movements, in revolutions. It's not just about the words or the melody. It's about what it represents. It's about what it represents. It's about the unbreakable human spirit, the idea that no matter how dark things get, there's always a way forward. Music doesn't just inspire. It ignites. It gives people courage, makes them feel like they're a part of something bigger, something unstoppable. When you stand in a crowd, shoulder to shoulder with people singing the same words, there's a kind of energy there that's hard to explain. It's like you're no longer just one person. You're part of a wave, a force, a collective heartbeat that's pulsing with purpose, with passion. And that feeling, that collective energy is what drives change. It's what gives people the strength to stand up, to speak out, to keep pushing forward, even when the odds seem impossible. Music gives people the strength to be brave, to be relentless, to keep going when every instinct is telling them to give up. It's like this primal force that says, we are stronger together, we are powerful, and we won't back down. And this isn't something that just fades away. This power of music, this connection, it builds. It carries on long after the moment has passed. Think about the songs that were sung in the civil rights movement or the anthems of the anti-war protests. Those songs didn't just disappear once the movement quieted down. They stayed with us. They became a part of our culture, our identity. They remind us of what we fought for, of what we stood for, of what we believe in. And they're still there, ready to inspire the next generation, to remind them of the battles that have been fought and the battles that still need to be won. Music becomes a legacy, a story that's passed down from one generation to the next. It's a way of keeping the spirit of change alive, of making sure that the progress we've made isn't forgotten. And let's talk about the future, because this power of music, this ability to unite and inspire, it's only going to grow. With technology, with global connectivity, music is more accessible, more immediate, and more powerful than ever before. People can create music from their bedrooms, share it with the world at the click of a button, and reach audiences that were once unimaginable. Movements can start with a single song, an anthem that resonates, that captures the heartbeat of a generation, and that's an incredible thing. We're entering a time where the barriers are breaking down, where anyone, anywhere can use their voice, can make a difference, can be heard. Music will continue to be at the forefront of change because it's one of the most effective ways we have of connecting with each other, of building empathy, of inspiring action. So here's the big takeaway. The reason why music matters, why it's more than just entertainment. Music is a reflection of us, our hopes, our struggles, our dreams. It's the sound of humanity in all its complexity, all its beauty, all its flaws. And in those moments when it feels like the world is divided, when it feels like we're more disconnected than ever, music has this unique power to remind us of our shared humanity, to show us that deep down, we're all feeling the same things. We're all part of the same story. And that's where the real magic lies. Music is a way of saying, I see you. I hear you. I understand you. And when people feel understood, when they feel seen, they're capable of incredible things. So as we move forward, as we continue to face challenges and struggles, let's remember the power of music. Let's remember that in those songs, in those rhythms, in those voices. There's a reminder of what it means to be human, of what it means to be connected, of what it means to be connected, of what it means to be alive. Music is a gift, a tool, a source of strength, and it's something that will always be there for us. Through every hardship, every triumph, every moment of joy, every moment of pain. Because in the end, music isn't just something we listen to. It's something we carry with us, something that lives inside of us. It's the heartbeat of change, the soul of humanity, and it will always, always be a force for good, a force for unity, a force for love,